The one and only Sonya Smith. Sonya, thanks so much for being with me today.
Of course, Alec. I wouldn't, yeah, it is the one and only, I would say. Nice intro.
Yeah, don't sell yourself short. You're the one and only Sonya Smith.
Yes, yes.
Sonya, for my education, actually, I don't even know this about you. Where were you born and where did you really grow up?
So I was actually born in New Jersey. So, I'm a Jersey girl all the way through and through. Summers at the shore, that whole thing. But the my background in general or my upbringing has been like across the country and different states. I come from a military family, so my father served for a few years. So I've lived in Hawaii and California and North Carolina, a bunch of different states across, based on bases that had the family and military family and that whole life growing up. So I've been a military brat, but most of my upbringing and schooling has been in New Jersey, and then I spent a lot of time in Pennsylvania after I graduated undergrad and grad school. So
Yeah, talk to me a little bit more about that. So you grew up mostly in Jersey.
yes,
What part of Jersey?
Middlesex County, so Woodbridge, New Jersey, like literally directly in the middle of the state, central Jersey. And if you're from Jersey, there's a such thing as Central Jersey because most people are like north or south. Like, no, there's a Central Jersey. Best pizza, by the way. And so, yes, that's where I grew up and went through most of my schooling from K through 12, or I would say that time frame, and then moved to Pennsylvania, and I've never been back actually to Jersey, which is, well, never been back to live. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I met you flowing together at the hot yoga spot.
Yes.
And so I know you as a yogi,
Mm-hmm.
but were you always into yoga growing up, or what really got you into it?
I would say in general, and I know we've talked about this, is just maintaining like some type of way of meditating a mental state and like your mental health. And I feel like yoga has all of those aspects of mental and physical and social aspects that really make it unique. There's other, of course, collegiate sports or sports in general and athletes and that bond that you build. And I think with yoga, it brings in so many different aspects. So I've been practicing yoga for, oh my gosh, since like 2012, 2013. Probably before that, actually, to be honest.
Okay.
But I would say that that's the time period I got serious because that's actually in alignment when I got serious with the fitness industry and getting into bodybuilding. And so it was like kind of around the same time where I was like, okay, I'll take on two big kind
Yeah.
of areas of making myself better physically.
So what were the things in your life that were going on at that time that made you want to get into bodybuilding, yoga, all of it?
Um, so like yoga, I started to get like more and more. So Ashtanga was actually, I went like right into like probably the most like high level of yoga. I really did a couple of like basic class of vinyasas and different flows, but I went straight in of like learning Ashtanga for Stephanie actually, and was a yogi and an instructor in Pennsylvania, and had this whole Mysore and community that she built, and so that's who I met with first. But I would say my life at that time period was graduating grad school, and getting a big girl job, adult job, and life was there, and relationships were changing, and I was moving. So it was like a lot going on where I was like, I need some grounding, and I always felt like sports and nature, things of that, those elements always kept me being me. So I did hiking a lot. I always hike a lot and run. I was a sprinter from probably all the way growing up into college, and played lacrosse, and I competitive cheerleading. So I always had a sports fitness background. I danced for a long time, all the way up until college as well, with a dance team at the college I went to. So there it was like, you're not in a team sport, you're graduating grad school, your adult life. Like, what can you do to like still maintain some health and not just like go to the gym and be a like commercial gym goer? I wanted to actually build a community. And so I had a instructor that was new at the gym, and she was like, "You'll be perfect for bodybuilding." I was like, "No, no, thank you." So I like blew her off for a couple of months, and then finally I was like, whatever you see in me, I'm willing to try." And so the rest was like history. And I kind of aligned it with meeting Stephanie and trying her class and getting into Ashtanga, and then also doing bodybuilding and being in the fitness industry. So, yeah, that was fun.
That's a lot, and I feel like we got to unpack all those different things that you've been so passionate about in your life and on your fitness journey. So let's start with bodybuilding.
Yes.
Because there's so much in that I know women deal with in terms of either thinking that they don't want to be too bulky, or there's just so much out there, particularly that I know, that affects women differently than how men typically view bodybuilding. So let's go to bodybuilding specifically.
Yes.
What really made you get into it?
I mean, bodybuilding as a whole, like that's what it's called, but like there's different divisions in the industry. So there's like bikini fitness. There's a new one called, I forget what it's called. I think it's like model. I think that's the level, and wellness. So there's different divisions under that. And I would say for me, it was something that the coach saw in me was like my personality, and like how I've done like talent shows and, different runway things, and done, clothing shows and all of that stuff, and modeling and photography, or helping photographers with different shoots. So like that and my personality kind of went with like what I learned in being an athlete. And she was like, the two worlds come together, where you're on stage, you're posing, you're showing your personality kind of through your body at the same time. And so, and I cheer and dance and stuff like that. And so what I learned there was like discipline. Everything was about discipline. So like your food, your time, like time blocking. I'm really big on time management to begin with. Like everything in my life is time blocked. But when you're doing that type of level of like training, you have to keep track of everything, like my meals, my supplements. I travel a lot for work. So I was like mailing my supplements, mailing my food to make sure I kept on track. And like, I think in general, it just comes with like a discipline and a level of like where your mind and your body have to come together in order to succeed. And your body wants to give up before like your mind does. So like, just keep pushing every day. And like with women, I think it's in that industry, it's understanding that bodybuilding was a dying sport for women. And then they had all these new divisions to like really try to work with a woman's physique in different ways. We're all very different, on the planet. So for instance, wellness is more quad and glute dominant. I used to be in bikini division when I first started, which is very lean, very like little tone when you're in the amateur, and then you can potentially be pro, where I was trying to drop down to 115 pounds, like stage weight, which is crazy. I'm like 5 to 7% body fat, nothing on me, like literally nothing. That's like killing your hormones, killing your body, killing your cycle. It's not about like being bulky unless you want to do the bodybuilding division. So it's like setting your goals on what the division looks like, what the coaches want to see, and is this going against your own natural body state? And if you can actually maintain that during competition season. To do it all year round, yes, it takes a toll on your body. Like because of the protein intake, my face, I was going back to like teenage of hormonal acne, and my face was breaking out. You're losing your hair sometimes. Yes, it's your hormones for women. It's a lot different for men. And so, yeah, I had to learn a lot of that of like, do I want to like look lean or have my face back to being normal? So yes, and I played with divisions. And then when the new division came out, I didn't have to go against my natural body. I'm a sprinter, soccer player, runner, like all these different sports where I'm using my speed and my quads and my glutes. And so wellness was like, oh, I don't have to fight against that anymore. I can be 135 on stage, where that's a lot of 20 pounds that I get to keep and eat slightly a little bit more carbs. So
yeah. I feel like to a good extent, there is a trend in the right direction, in a positive direction, to view strong as the new skinny.
Yes.
I think that messaging.
I love that for women. Like you said, a lot of women are like, oh, I'll get bulky. It takes time to build muscle. I don't think people understand that. I mean, when you're in the industry or you're an athlete in general, you understand that if you're not naturally built that way. But so like just be if you're lifting a couple of weights or hand weights, you're not going to immediately get bulky. It takes time to build muscle. But I like that women are being strong. Your pelvic strength, core strength, all of that helps your back, your lower back, your muscles, your joints. Whether it's yoga, whether it's weightlifting, whether it's spin, anything like that with movement is really helpful as you get older and your body changes and what it can withstand. Yeah,
Yeah.
sitting down a lot. That's like a lot of this culture's way, and it kind of takes a toll on everything. Yeah.
So when you go back to your early days, starting out as a bodybuilder and
Mhm.
your whole fitness journey, can you talk a little bit about what you've seen for your own life impact on your not only physical health, but mental health, emotional health, spiritual health? How has it really helped you across the board?
I say that's where it all comes together for me. Like I said, whether it's something that I'm doing like bodybuilding or yoga or even hiking, I feel like in nature, that's like my connection with God. That's my spiritual connection in general, as like in his presence of his creation, not just creating me, but this lovely planet. And it's like doing something physical or giving back. I say that's like the discipline of building community and love for something and a passion for something bigger than myself. And I think that's where the discipline comes in place of just pushing yourself a little bit more, whether it's something physically or spiritual or a mental emotional mindset. It's just being able to connect something where it's positive in that. And I think that's what I would say fitness in general, I would say movement in general does for me. It makes me feel like you're progressing and you're doing something bigger than yourself. And so that's where the positive thoughts and emotions and endorphins and everything lovely comes out of that. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
we've talked about the concept of movement as medicine
Oh, yeah,
with multiple guests.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I guess I'm on theme,
you're on
right?
theme. You're on theme.
It is. It's, I mean, yes, you see like different studies and different, whether they're looking at firing your muscles firing in different athletes or university studies or like your brain and which part lights up. It is. And so that's why I'm like, people, if you just do something that you like, you're just not a comparison of this person's doing this type of, workout or level of fitness. It's like, if you like to dance, then dance. If you like to walk, walk or buy a treadmill or go to the gym or walk outside
Yeah.
with your kids. Just do something that you enjoy.
Well, let me touch on that because you talk about different types of movement. So I want to ask you more specifically. Like me, you love to do a lot of different things. You like to lift weights. You do yoga. You do bar, Pilates.
Yes.
I've even seen some chair dancing
I
reels
dance.
of you. I
Yeah.
certainly love to dance too. What do all those different types of movements really do for you in your mind from a real training perspective?
I feel like in general, and I did this in Pennsylvania. I had 4 different coaches I was working with. So I don't even just work with one person because everyone brings something different. And so I feel like the people and or the type of activity you're doing brings something different that adds a new element or a special element to making you you. And so I always want to understand the foundation and be the best at what I possibly can be. And so being a multi diverse athlete or having multiple disciplines in my background, I think helps me with different areas and how your body responds to things. And so it's not just like I just do spin or I just do, weightlifting. It helps my body respond in different ways. I don't want to be too compact and dense, but I also like lifting weights where I'm not just going to do Pilates and bar and yoga all the time. So they all have a different purpose, I think. And
Yeah. Do you get asked what is your favorite out of all of them?
I do get asked, I don't have a I would say my favorite thing to do is actually hiking. And that's because of the nature aspect of it and how I really feel at peace. Like whether it's I'm listening to music or by myself or with other people, most of the time I can't be with like a group. It has to be myself or one other person. But like that's like the peaceful aspect. It's just like the beauty and like everything around you. So
Is part of that for you just feeling like you can turn your brain off for a while?
I think so because anyone that knows me knows I'm constantly thinking of ideas or what's next or what to do or like how to be. Yes, I'm like a really weird person when it's like, how can I be better? I constantly think that constantly. It's like, what can you do better today? And I think that sometimes that probably bothers people. It's not that I'm never like grateful or content. It's that I refuse to be complacent. Refuse to be complacent.
I completely understand that. And I share the same struggle of having a healthy approach to a growth mindset
Yes.
because you have to be able to sustainably move the goalposts
Mhm.
in order to actually push yourself to achieve more. But yet, there's also a toxic quality where you get so hyper focused on achievement that, in my mind, you forget to actually enjoy the present.
Yeah. So for me, I've been, even if I, which is weird, even if I give myself a framework about that, I do it because I haven't done it in the past. So it still works for me. So even if I'm like, take a day, which I have been doing that, take a day. Like yesterday, I went to go get a massage. So it was like, take a day to like celebrate something that you have achieved. Like you said, being in that mindset of the present, of like enjoying your wins and your successes and celebrating them and like saying, okay. So I do that now of like giving myself like a chance to be like, yes, you had a great week. You did X, Y, and Z at work or with your workouts. And now give yourself a moment to like sit back and then move on. So at least I give myself like, you have a half a day to like celebrate and then back to the grind.
How does that personality profile for you affect like your friendships and relationships? Because I got to imagine that it's hard to sometimes be around people who aren't wired similarly.
Um, that's that's a loaded question. I would start with friendships. Friendships, it's easy because that's like the beauty with friends or like the family that you get to choose.
Yeah.
And so we get to choose each other. And that's the lovely part is that your friend, I feel like with friends, yes, family love you unconditionally, but friends is a different love because it's like we get to choose each other and it's unconditional at the same time. And so I feel like that mix is different because we all bring a different element to make each other like, some people may be more funny and more disciplined or more, whatever the case, more spontaneous. I have friends that are like that where we were actually just talking yesterday where we would just be like, oh, let's go to the museum or let's go to karaoke. Like that's how she is. It's just like, okay, we're sitting here. What do we like? Let's just do this. And I love that because I'm like so planned. And with her, I was like, oh crap, like now we're on a different state, like salsa dancing because that's what she wanted to do today. I feel like with that, with my friendships, it doesn't hinder anything. Family, same thing. Intimate relationships and work relationships. I would say it's difficult with a growth mindset personality. I would say work, especially as a leader and my organization's big organization. I think some of my team members might feel that my expectations and standards that they're constantly like running towards them. And I just want them to be the best versions of themselves, not a mini version of me. And I constantly have to tell them I appreciate them. And then for intimate relationships, it is difficult because same thing. It's like I want the equally yoked and reciprocated relationship, but sometimes it becomes something maybe in the back of their mind that they'll never be good enough or whatever the case may be, or whatever kind of message they're saying to themselves. But I'm always like, I feel like maybe I'm not, but I feel like I'm accepting of all of that. Just don't give yourself a message that I did not give to you myself, I guess is the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess like what would be the qualities within an intimate relationship in your mind, like based on your personality profile, that would be the most important to you?
Quality is important to me. Kind,
Okay.
supportive, ambitious. Like old school chivalry is like my father was in the military. I'm a daddy's girl. So like doing things for me is I'm an acts of service is my love language. So that's like really important to me as well as quality time. And generous, like a generous person, like generous with time, love, money, like whatever the case, like wanting to like be a partner. And being a partner, like collaborating on things, seeing where we are mentally, physically, emotionally, and checking in, wanting to be like with the person. I feel like maybe past relationships have been liking the idea of me or liking the image, but not wanting to actually do the work.
I have loved the idea of many women in my past. It's certainly the reality that you have to work to actually get to know and
Yes.
fall in love with in a healthy and sustainable way. So, from your perspective, what does healthy masculinity actually look like in 2025?
That's like a big switch. Like you really pivoted with that question.
Yeah, I mean, we're just talking about intimate relationships. So I figure from a wellness standpoint, and I think fitness is certainly a part of it in my
Oh
mind of like,
yes, I've seen some talks,
yeah,
and yes,
yeah,
healthy masculinity. I say the things that I just mentioned.
okay,
Um, I like yes, I'm a little old school. So
yeah,
protector provider. And I'm not saying it's just in a financial sense. Like provide a space for me to feel safe, to open up, to feel protected, to be in my feminine energy. I have a very demanding job. I make a lot of decisions all the time. I'm very type A, and I actually want to take that hat off when I come home. And if you're not providing that space for me because you're in competition with me, it's not going to work. So, like I said, generous, respectful, chivalrous, that kind of,
yeah.
yeah.
No, I appreciate those insights a lot because to me, fitness and wellness is a foundation for improvement in every area of your life, including how to approach relationships in a
Yes.
healthier way. And I think of my own journey and mistakes I've made in my own past or the growth areas that I'm continuing to work on. So I just always appreciate insight from strong, successful women of how guys can step up and be better in that way. Because
Yes.
it just seems like there really is a crisis within at least men of how can men be men in a healthy way to be supportive of women, to be partners with women on
Mhm.
an equal playing field.
Yes, I just had this conversation with my mother several times. Um, and both of my parents are old fashioned, so maybe that's why I am. But she said she doesn't like to see women doing quote unquote things that in traditional roles in her mindset and her beliefs. And she's tired of seeing women be more like men. And I said, well, it's a two-way street. I feel like women feel like that might be their last resort or something they have to. Because, like you said, the healthy masculine ideal is not always there or, someone that they're with. And she said, oh, I understand that now that you put it in that perspective. It has to be both sides. And so I think that's where I see what you mean. And yeah, I also feel like it's definitely not going to be, it has to be a partnership. And I want my partner to check me. Um, I might not like it, but I think
Yeah.
I'm a strong personality and men might be thinking that it's all my way, but now I want you to check me. That's the whole point of learning and growing.
Yeah. So what's your take on either couples working together or the dynamic of in a relationship, both people having a similar approach to their fitness and wellness? And the reason why I ask is I have gotten to know a lot of people who, in my mind, have quiet tension points with their partners. And it's usually women who are really working to take care of themselves and like in the gym regularly. And from what I can see, their male partners are just not at that level.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of dynamics within that that personally really fascinate me. But what is your take on it?
So there's one aspect of that where it's actually happened several times. So when I first got into bodybuilding and yoga really seriously, I was dating someone for a few years, maybe at 2 years at that time, and we lived together. And when I got super serious and my schedule changed, and it wasn't always about him, we actually had a really bad breakup because it was not about everything we argued about. It was because it wasn't about him, or I didn't have time, or I wasn't doing this, and it just became a blame game. And I think, like I said, on the supportive side, it has to be someone that, even if you're I was actually just talking to one of my physical therapists, and she does Ironman challenges. And and she asked me, "Would you date a bodybuilder?" And I was like, "No, I've been in the industry. I probably couldn't because I know friends that date bodybuilders and they kind of like it's a nitpick almost." And she said she would never date someone that also races in her area. She just wants someone that's supportive of that and understands that her schedule will be crazy sometimes, but let's like make it work. I think if you have someone that's supportive and understands and wants to be your cheerleader and vice versa, like if I dated someone that was really into marathons, I might do one or two, but I would always be there with the biggest sign and everything else. It's just like, I think that's where it has to be an understanding of someone else's passion. And then how can you show up to support them? It might be help me meal prep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know for me, one piece of my history, which I can't remember if I've actually shared with you before, and getting a little personal, I had an ex-girlfriend on my fitness journey who did not want me to continue to really lose weight. And that was one of many reasons why that was not going to work. But I think that dynamic can quietly exist as well within a lot of couples where there's one or the other that based out of a level of insecurity
Yes.
can sometimes feel like they want to be the more attractive one. They want to feel like they're the hotter one, whatever it is in a relationship. Have you seen that?
Yeah. That's the sad part. And that's where I say, whether it's like fitness and looks or money, job title, even family dynamics, there's like certain relationships where they're like, oh, you're closer to your family. You spend so much time with your family versus of someone that has not grown up in that traditional setting or close, tight knit family. So yeah, someone's insecurities or their own background and experiences can be pulled into their relationships. And that's why dating and having all those pre-date questions and knowing someone, yes, you never fully know someone, but really seeing, I like to ask people like what their insecurities are or what they're working on or what has like been a big like hindrance to like certain aspects of their life. Like I'm a little bit of a weird person when it comes to like deep questions.
Yeah.
But it's like that's where you hopefully you kind of get a little bit more insight on how they might respond or react to things. And I think insecurities, like I said, whether it's money or fitness or looks, come into play where you're in competition with your partner versus like, I'll be like, definitely, if my boyfriend or husband's in the gym, I'll be like, yes, like cheering you on, like, go ahead, like, do your, like, how much are you lifting? What is your PR? I'll be super excited for you. Like, we're not in competition together. We are like, we want to be a great couple, not like individuals, but then a couple together.
Yeah. I'll tell you mine. I'll just volunteer. I mean, I think for me, one of my biggest insecurities for a long time was this idea that I needed to be in a relationship, especially when I was heavier, because I thought, oh, okay, that's going to be the solution. If I have this smoke show by my side and that's going to solve all the problems and I'll think better about myself. And in reality, it's just, you laugh at it now because it's so much more important to work on yourself.
Yes.
And that's the advice I always tell the guy friends in my life who are singles. Just keep working on yourself. It's amazing how many of your problems will go away if you can just get yourself in shape, get your health right, get your money right. A lot of those things take care of itself because when you're at that point, I'm finding that people just see it and they want to be part of that energy or ethos. And I think the same thing is true for women.
Yes, people are attracted to positive, great things, great looking people. It's I want to say sad, but that's just reality. Like you want to be a part of something that's positive, or you want to be around positive energy. You don't like if there's two people in a room and one is like super negative and upset and cursing everyone out. Why would you want to be sitting on that side of the room versus the one that's like cheering everyone on and saying hello? Yes, it's like you said. If people and individuals, I know you were saying your male friends. Focus on themselves and the aspects that can make them better versus pointing the fingers on who's taking what from them or who's not supporting them or who's doing better than them. Comparison will like kill that completely. It's like focus on you and you become the smoke show instead. And then you have two smoke shows. And so that's my whole thing. It's like, why can't we both? Like, there's enough room.
Yeah, where there's smoke, there's fire. That's the goal.
And I will burn this place down. That's my goal. I'm like, yeah, you support me and we can definitely be, great together. That's the thing.
That's what excites me to no end The
Mhm.
idea that as I'm continuing to do my best to work on myself sustainably,
Yes.
that whoever that right woman out there is for me is doing the exact same thing.
Hmm.
And just the idea that at some point, whenever it's right, we're going to link up and
Hmm.
have this dynamic, amazing partnership and then take each other's game to the next level.
Yeah,
That's
that's
the goal.
correct. And I feel like if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, what is it? And sorry, it's my religious background, or I would say spiritual background of like Ruth and Boaz is like she was in the field doing what she was supposed to do and helping her, her former, well, still her mother-in-law after her husband passed away. And she was in the field, and Boaz was rich and wealthy, and they didn't have any money or food, but she was gathering wheat, and he saw her being feminine and lovely and caring for a woman that was still technically her mother-in-law, but not, she didn't have any obligation to the family to do that after her husband passed away. And he was a wealthy man and was like, you're doing what you're supposed to do, and then those people will find you. And so,
Yeah.
yeah. I always say my Boaz is somewhere. He's watching me like, oh my gosh, like what else is she doing? So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I jokingly boil down my current journey to working towards washboard abs and building out businesses, just trying to improve myself every single day. But you mentioned insecurities too.
Mhm.
I mean, what's something you feel comfortable sharing that you're working on right now?
Insecurity of mine. Um, I would say to showing. I wouldn't say there's no positive or negative emotion. Let me put it that way. Showing other emotions outside of like, and I literally just had this conversation like 20, 30 minutes ago with my mother. Showing other emotions besides like happy or contentment or anything like that. I think a lot of people say I have a great poker face. They're like, we don't know where you stand, and you're like neutral. So like I would yeah, insecurity would be that quote unquote negative emotions are like not taking lightly. Everyone feels, or I feel like people think I always have it together and perfect and blah blah and like nothing bothers her. And I feel like when I show if or when and if I'm able to show like I'm upset or sad or like I've had a lot of things happen, especially last year, and I kind of just worked through it. And instead of actually showing and going through the emotions where you're like, oh, you're human, or like,
Yeah, I know we've talked about kind of mutual loved ones in our life who passed away. And I think we've had some grief journey
yeah,
bonding as well, I think through my father. And then you had a close friend that, if I'm correct, that had passed away
yes,
in a similar time. But is it fair to say that sort of being able to be more comfortable in your own personal vulnerability
yes.
is what
I was
you're
gonna
really
say
working on?
yes. And soon as you, before you said it, it popped in my head. It's like being vulnerable, and so I think that's where my insecurity comes. Is like if I'm vulnerable, then will people show up, kind of thing? Because everyone shows up when things are going great and cheering you across the finish line. But are they the whole like sickness and health, death, and uh,
Yeah.
the whole I'm not married, so I don't know what the vowels are completely, but like that whole jazz. But like, are they gonna be there in the bad times? And I feel like, yeah, everyone's been great when I'm doing well, but like, are
Yeah.
they gonna show up? Yeah.
I often think there's a stoic, pragmatic ability to talk about just practicing emotional capacity that can
Mm,
help with vulnerability. Not even necessarily to deny yourself the feeling of feeling vulnerable,
correct.
but just being able to respond to it rather than react to it,
Yes,
which is a big difference.
definitely. Yes, I I think that's the feeling it was something I just started doing. Like I would really work crazy. Like I was going to the gym at 4:30 in the morning, working all day, working out multiple times throughout the day. Like when I'm having negative emotions, I just and I actually just watched a show on this. It's just like what do you call it? Transfer that energy into something like positive that I can control. Because I'm like, I can't control this emotion. And so the feeling part has been new from like me in the last couple of years, and it's been great. And then responding, I think I don't react. I just respond like, what can I do to actually communicate to the person if it involves another person? Or like actually go through the emotions and respond to a way that I've learned from it. Yeah, I don't, the reaction part is a little dangerous where you're impulsively doing things out of whatever emotion you're feeling, especially if it's anger.
Yep, that's why I love yoga, because you have the opportunity to notice what you're feeling. If you
Yes.
in the practice, like you don't have to react to it, you don't even have to respond to it. You can just build the capacity to notice it.
Mm.
And in my mind, kind of mentally journal, okay, I'm feeling a little more anxious than normal. All right, let me be mindful of that. There could be a storm coming. Let's prepare some emotional sandbags to deal with whatever is going to come through the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Have you
power.
ever, I have a question for you. I know
Okay.
it's like your show, but
No, ask
have you
away.
ever cried in yoga?
Yes.
Yeah.
We actually talked about with Tommy Birch, who was a previous guest on the show,
Okay.
emotional breakthroughs in yoga.
Yes.
I've had a lot of them.
Yes. I've cried and actually blacked out once. Which sounds weird, but I was in where were we no, Bali. I was in Bali, of course, of all places. And they were just talking about like the energy or like whatever study about like the energy in Bali and like the kind of replenishing and regeneration. And we did a yoga session with someone, a traditional yogi from there, and like I felt like a warmth, then like crazy emotion, cry. Someone was like screaming. I thought like bloody murder. Like everyone had different emotions, and then I like blacked out, and my body went super cold. And my friend Sarah like touched me and was like, "Is she alive?" And I was like, "I don't know what happened. I just like blacked out." Yeah.
Yeah, I've had some major moments like that, processing to kind of the physical, mental transformation, emotional transformation of my own journey. At times, I've had those moments of really letting go of real traumas in yoga.
Yeah.
I've met my father's spiritual presence in yoga. I did a yoga session right around Father's Day, only a few months after he had passed away, and I really felt that presence. And a lot of people struggle with faith. I'm certainly wrestling with it. I've talked about it before. I feel like I'm in this Jacob with the angel state, and I'm hoping God looks favorably upon that for me. It's not easy, but yoga is that spiritual arena for me. And I think for so many people, regardless if you're Christian or whatever type of spiritual life you may identify with, it is an opportunity to slow your brain down and listen to those quiet voices, those feelings that so often we mute or aren't even able to hear because of how crazy life is.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Yeah. That and I love sound baths. I love like anything like energetic. It some like weird crazy things have happened, like you said, whether it's visions or people or my whole body feels like it's on fire, or like literally I feel like I have no blood and like my body's like freezing cold. So it's like had my ebbs and flows and different emotions.
So we talked about how you may be working to get a little more comfortable with vulnerability. I'm curious on a more physical, mental state beyond just the bigger picture, emotional capacity of perhaps being able to be more comfortable in vulnerability. What other big things in your life, through your own fitness and wellness journey, do you feel like are top priority for you right now?
Fitness. So I feel like I've had these like peaks and valleys of like my weight shifts. You know, I'm a muscular woman. I've had a muscular build probably as long as I can remember, like shoulder caps in like 5th grade.
Yeah, you go by Fit Thick Barbie on Instagram.
Like I was just talking to my friend, like I've had quads and glutes and shoulder caps from like as long as I can remember. Like my arms are pretty like jacked for a woman and a woman my size. So like my whole thing was last year, as I was mentioning, the emotional and physical part, I can definitely tell I was disconnected. So it was like just going through the motions of like just trying to get movement, just because mentally I was just not really dealing with what I needed to deal with. And I was like, oh my gosh, towards the end of the year, I'm like, I think I've gained so much weight. And then I was like looking at old pictures from November, December, and I was like, yeah, gotta get it, like you have to like deal with what you need to deal with, process it, and then like really get back into connecting. And like now I feel so much better. Like I literally feel like there's been a weight, because you're like we were saying, respond, like what do you say,
Responding versus
reacting. Yes. So I'm like responding to that, and now my body's responding to it because I'm emotionally and mentally responding to it appropriately. Now my body's actually showing up where I'm not having the inflammation and holding like extra weight and water. Like I was holding everything, like, and you can see it in my body. And so that's why, yeah, it's important. I wasn't sleeping. My body was super inflamed. I was like, the stress was there. And now my body's like, oh, you're actually letting these things go. And so that's my goal, is to continue to work on that and be leaner, be more athletic. And a lot of my trainings, and I don't know, I've talked about like hopefully doing maybe a marathon just to check it off my box. I haven't. I've done half marathons before, but I want to do a marathon just to say like, yeah, I did it. Don't really care about time, don't really care about, like, I might have like no feet by the end of it, but blisters, but I just want to do that. So yeah, I have like some little mini things that I want to do.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about it, but I haven't asked you really much about your professional life. And how for you does your fitness and wellness passions and interests really play into kind of day to day being able to perform well within your professional life?
That type A personality.
Yeah.
That we're saying, that grind.
We talked about time blocking, and that's
Yeah.
certainly really important.
I time block everything. Like even when I have to clean or vacuum or laundry, like everything's time blocked. So if it's not on my schedule, I feel like I will like eat up time from that. So I'll be like, oh, well, I was doing this thing with Alec and now we're 2 hours instead of hour and a half.
Yeah, that's why I sent you a calendar invite.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much. So I appreciate that. It is. It's important for me to time block. Because then that just sets the discipline for other areas of my life. And
what is time blocking for people who may not really understand what this concept is?
So if you look at all of your time within whatever a day or a week's time frame, I do it within, I do it every month, but my year is usually scheduled out a year before, which sounds crazy to some people, but it is because of my work that I know when programs and things I have to do. So it's for a year out. And time blocking is like time management aspect of using a calendar, whether it's handwritten or a digital aspect of putting in your activities, whether they're work and or personal things you need to do to maintain some aspect of progress. Because some people, what do they say, they procrastinate, and then you're like, oh, I'll get to it, and you realize those little tasks could have been done like in 10 minutes versus waiting 3 weeks for you to do that. So I feel like if it's on my calendar and I set the intention to focus on it, I can put all my energy in it and get it done. And sometimes it's less time, and then I have open up things, time to do something else.
When did you start making that part of your regular routine? Since your day of birth?
That's what my mother would say. She's like, there's two things that when she was born, stubborn and know exactly what she wants and focus, which is one and the same, stubborn. But I would say probably high school, because I also worked in high school and I played sports. And then I was also enrolled in AP and college prep courses. But I'm nice, like high achiever. So I literally working sports, I had clinics, and then, high, curricular, academics and curricular things I needed to do. So yeah, I would say probably before high school, but I would say high school where I can actually identify.
All right. So let me ask you, as a type A person.
Yes.
If you think back of your life, do you have any moment where you can feel like you really failed at something and you had to process what that really was, and ultimately how did you decide to move on from it? No? You've never failed at anything?
I don't actually.
I don't mean failure in a negative way, just something that didn't work out.
Yes, my therapist says, my former therapist, I don't see her anymore, but she says that I don't actually see those things as, like you said, as failures. She's like, you don't use that word. And I'm like, I really don't. Now that you say that. Learning experience.
Yeah, I mean, failure is feedback. I believe that.
I would say mostly relationships. I wouldn't say professional.
Yeah.
I'm like a do or don't. I'm black. Yeah. It's black and white. There's no gray with me professionally. And I think that's why I take risk that most people are not comfortable with. Because I'm like, be creative and go big, or just don't do it at all. And
okay, so let me use the relationship piece. You talked about ideas, and we talked about ideas versus the reality of relationships to some extent. Mm-hmm. Within maybe a past relationship, was there a moment where you realized what you really thought you were in love with was the idea of somebody versus the reality? And then at that point, how do you pivot to navigating what's next?
Yeah, I feel like there's like two patterns, and not all my past relationships, two patterns. It was either I don't want to make it sound negative, but they either wore me down.
Okay.
And I was just like, fine, relationship.
That's it, and that's all.
Yeah. And the other one was, the other pattern I've seen is potential, like being in love, like whatever, lust with the potential of what it could be. And so it was either I didn't really like the person or it was potential. And then I had great relationships. Not saying like, please don't think I'm like horrible dater, but I would say my lessons of life have come from relationships versus like family or I would say even family, relationships in general versus like professional. It was more like I can be better communicator. I can try to show emotion more. I can, like, what other ways I can show up. I'm just more task oriented, and that probably doesn't come off very well in relationships.
I tease some of the women in my life who I know are very also type A, and they like to run the show in their mind and have a lot of control. I feel like sometimes that lends themselves to end up dating project guys that they really hope they can kind of work with.
The potential.
There's the potential. So what's the point when you realize that potential is just a long-term project that you got to bail on? Is there a moment where that just hits you?
No, I haven't had really. I wouldn't call it projects. I haven't had the projects, which I've seen some of my friends date, or in general, I've seen women. Let me put it that way. I wouldn't say my friends because I like a lot of their husbands and boyfriends.
Yeah.
I would say in general, yes, projects are a thing for women, or I would say people, individuals that are dating that might be a fixer, or like type A, or like, just like I said, a task oriented. So it's like, oh, this person has this potential. Let me fix this about him or her, or, that person. So I think they need to, I don't think I dated a project, but like, yes, I've seen potential. And I'm also a person that I don't like to repeat myself. So for me, it's not going to take long versus some other people. Like, I'm not going to tell you, like, if you want my help, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And you've asked me, like, for instance, if we were dating and you said, I want help doing, which I've had this happen, where someone said, I'm trying to go for this job, but they wanted me to do more in the community. They want to see that I'm like external, not just internal. So I was like, oh, let's do this. You can join this committee. I'm part of this board. They were looking for other people. Then you never do it. Then you really don't want to advance in your career. Don't ask me for help if you don't want it. That's I want it. It seems like I want it more than you do. And so I'm not gonna repeat myself more than maybe 3 times. And then for me, that's when I bail.
Well, I'm asking in part because I know from my experience, I used to look completely past red flags. And to quote my buddy Omar McGill, Schenectady County legislator, who once said to me, those red flags ain't decorations. You can't hang them on a wall and think that they're like nice and shiny. And
you're collecting them.
You're collecting them. You don't want to be a hoarder of red flags.
Yes. I think the red flags are, like I said, what my standards are now is more like personality based on like how they make me feel in the relationship
Yeah.
versus like how I'm also making them feel. It was more like, what can I do to like help them or be better or make them feel like secure or make them feel great about the relationship and not reciprocating on that. And I think that's why when you ask like what are those qualities, that's what I look for now. Like, are you supportive? Are you generous of your time and of the space? Are you creating a space for me? And now I'm looking for that. So if I have to repeat that
Yeah.
multiple times, then I'm like, no, thank you.
My foundational points for me is somebody who makes me feel safe, secure, and hopefully has a really good sense of humor.
Laughing is like, what do they say? And not just an apple a day, but laughter is
Yeah.
that will help.
I got to be able to laugh with them. That's half the battle. Because life is so hard as it is. And
Yes.
I think with any potential partner, that's what you really want, someone who you can be intimate with.
Yeah, I say it's the kid part. Like makes you feel like a kid again. Like nothing, no idea is crazy. If you want to build a fort and have your little like snacks and dinner at home and watch movies or play games. I love games, board games, all that stuff. Like make life fun. Like you said, life is very hard. The world is like just blowing up at this at this great, but it's like if you can find that joy and like love and happiness and the little aspects of life and especially your person, that makes it like worthwhile. Yeah.
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 I think with the time we have, maybe in closing, just want to ask you for people who might be listening to this, watching this, who just feel overwhelmed across the board with wanting to feel like they're making health a priority in their life and focusing on fitness or wellness. That just, I know for a lot of people, all of it can feel so overwhelming. But you
Yeah.
obviously didn't start where you are now.
Mhm.
Neither did I. What would your advice be to people who are really thinking about intentionally really starting on any type of fitness or wellness journey?
So I would say map out your goals and then work backwards. The second thing I would say, are they realistic also? And third thing is to look for something you enjoy. It's not like a chore for you to do. Like if you don't want to wake up at 4 a.m. to go to the gym, then don't. Like if you want to go walking with your family at 6 p.m., do that. And then I say the fourth thing is find a community or like an accountability partner or someone or some people that also have that like mindedness and passion about it because then it's like it doesn't feel like tedious. It feels like a joy. You found your people. Like you said, like whether it's your partner or in general, like you find those life like the funny part of it, the laughing, the joking, the support, the crying, the tears, the PRs, like all of that comes from having a community and people. So I would say those are the four things. Like map out your journey, your goals, work backwards, be realistic, find something you really like and that you're passionate about, and then find your people.
Those are truly some fantastic four insights.
Yeah.
So, Sonya, I can't thank you enough for joining me today, talking more about your journey and sharing your wonderful wisdom on what it can be like to live a life that's built different.
Yes.
So, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. You guys have been great. Good.